Welcome back. So, Vince Staples has dropped Dark Times. Pretty quick follow up, in my opinion, from Ramona Park, even though Ramona Park, I think it's almost been 2 years, but it doesn't feel like it. But Vince Staples has been on an amazing 3 album run, especially in this decade, with the self titled record and Ramona Park Broke My Heart. Dark Times follows suit and kind of in that more mellow, contemplative, and slower direction that Vince is going for at this current state. And both of these records, both the previous and this most recent album, kind of fall in the same kind of ratings for people. Critic score of a 79, user score of a 71 for Ramona Park, and a critic score of an 80 to an 81 in the users when it comes to Dark Times. Now, the big discerning factor, I think, with Dark Times from the other records is that I feel like this is the most sincere that we have heard Vince Staples. While he has given a lot of sincere moments across his discography, a lot of it is kind of more about the things that he has seen and the things that he's experienced. But I feel like with Dark Times, this is him trying to explore himself and trying to find ways to find connection, find relationships, whether it's through his family, whether it's through women, whether it's through his neighborhood. I feel like this is the most kind of him self reflecting and him trying to find a missing piece that's going on in his life. And this album does have a little bit more of that faster pace and a little bit more of that grittier sound that kind of harkens back to 2015 with Summertime '06. And I believe one of these songs kind of talks about is that people want the old Vince when Big Fish came out. He's been whack ever since. But this album does definitely have a little bit more of a peppier tone, I guess I would say, to it, especially when it comes to songs like Black and Blue. That does have a little bit more prominence on the drums, a little bit more of a faster flow, a little bit more louder in its production. And overall, that song is a really good start off to this album. That really starts out this album off with a bang. Shame on the Devil was the single that was released and definitely slows down the pace, but it definitely gets the point across that I was stating before that Vince is really just trying to find an emotional connection and something that's going to be more fulfilling and longer lasting. Shame on the Devil is a great example of that, especially in the first couple of lines where Vince states is like, I need something love, I need affection, I need something that's longer and satisfaction. Kind of some very much paraphrasing, but it really shows the concept of this record of what Vince is really looking for. Etouffee really plays into another strong thing about this record is that the hook game has improved significantly. With Ramona Park and with Vince Staples, the self-titled, those songs did have some structure, but I felt like they were a lot more stream of consciousness songs where they didn't really they had a very loose structure. But with Dark Times, I feel like the structure of these songs is a lot more thought out. It's a lot more meticulous in how it's crafted. And with that, I think the hook game on this album is significantly better. And these songs do have more of a stickiness to it than some of the other records did. While I still love songs like Magic off of Ramona Park and songs like With Where You With That and Sundown Town and The Shining off of Vince Staples self-titled, I feel like these songs have a little bit more of a sticky quality to them, all because the hooks are a lot more prominent and stronger. Little Homies is another great example. Life Hard But I Go Harder is constantly stuck in my head, even when I'm not even listening to the song or when I'm not even thinking about it sometimes. But Etouffee is probably one of my favorite songs on the record, mostly because that hook is so strong and it does pick up the pace again and it does make the song, while almost being over 4 minutes, it is very engaging and also the writing on that song is also fantastic. And then another one of my favorites is Radio. That does talk about Vince kind of reminiscing. It's just like listening to Big Boy, listening to these rappers and listening to these songs that he kind of grew up with. And I think this is the song as well that he was talking with a woman and asking, it's just like why the woman doesn't like the music. And her saying it's just like the way that they objectify women in these songs and the way they kind of treat women kind of makes Vince change his perspective and listen to other artists that kind of bring a different perspective. And that's another really big thing I really like about this record is that it does bring up some really cool concepts and cool ideas, particularly in the interludes. I'm thinking of Liars as an example, where there's a woman and it's a man. It's just a simple conversation, but the woman is saying just like, why do you fake it for just strangers and acquaintances, always putting your best foot forward, always bringing your best first impressions? Why can't you fake it with me? Why can't you can bring your best foot forward as a person that loves you and cares for you? Why do I always get the anger? I get the sadness. I get the pity of you sometimes. It's like, why can't you fake it for me? And it brings up these really cool concepts that really test and play into that factor of connection, long-lasting relationships, finding love, searching for something to fulfill in your life. These interlude pieces and kind of the overarching concept of this record is really enforced by a lot of these tracks, and that's why overall I think this is probably one of Vince's most captivating works when it comes to the songwriting, and it really does stand out, especially on tracks like Radio and as Shame on the Devil as a big example. So overall, out of the 3 album run from this decade, I feel like Dark Times is probably his best one. And keep in mind that the self-titled and Ramona Park are around that 8.5, 8 out of 10 range. I love all of these records, and I feel like Vince is getting better and better with each of these albums as he goes along. Do I wish that maybe the sound of these albums get a little bit more starting to shift into a different direction? Maybe. All these 3 albums, while they do sound somewhat distinct, they are starting to blend into each other a little bit, and I feel like a change in sound may be necessary going forward with future records. But at the current moment, sometimes you don't need an artist to really explore and boundary push. You don't need artists to really experiment with their sound to make an album more fulfilling and more satisfactory. Sometimes just sticking with your guns and just working with what you have and you know that it works is all that you need. And at that current moment, Vince is kind of working in that bag and he's doing it very well. And I think, again, the big thing that makes this album a little bit more distinct from the others is that it is the most self-contemplative, the most reflective on Vince as himself and what he is trying to find in his life. And where the past records are kind of him reflecting on past experiences and talking about those, sometimes in very grave and brutal detail. I feel like this is kind of more peeling back the wants of Vince as a person and what he's trying to find to fulfill in his life. So overall, I did really enjoy this record. One of my favorites of the year. There's been a lot of amazing records that have dropped this year, so it's going to be very hard to make a top 20. That's why I'm probably jumping to a top 50 at this point. Overall, though, this is an 8 out of 10. I gave it an 8.5 on my reaction, but it kind of plays into the thing I was just saying a little bit ago, where I think the sound is getting a little bit too samey across these 3 albums, and I do hope that there is a change in sound. But at this current time, I feel like this record still continues on the amazing streak that Vince has been on. So what do you think about Dark Times? Are you loving it? Are you not liking it as much? Do you want Vince to go back into a more kind of unorthodox sound? What are your thoughts on it? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again very soon.